There's a strange moment in every man's life when what once felt impossible begins to unfold in front of him. The same woman who pulled away, who seemed so distant, so indifferent, suddenly begins to reach out. She calls, she texts, she wants to talk. And at first it doesn't make sense, because not long ago you were the one doing everything to hold things together. You were the one waiting, overthinking, wondering how it all slipped through your fingers. But this is how role reversals often begin, not with a dramatic shift, but with a quiet return to self. I've seen it happen time and time again. Men who were once broken by a goodbye later become the ones who walk away, stronger, quieter, and no longer seeking permission to feel whole. And what causes this shift isn't luck, it isn't manipulation, it's the clarity that comes when you finally stop trying to fix her feelings and start repairing your own center. That's what we're going to talk about today. Because if you've ever found yourself chasing, explaining, trying to be enough, and you're ready to reclaim the part of you that got lost in the process, then stay with me. This video wasn't made to bring her back. It was made to bring you back. And if you find something in this message that speaks to your experience, even in a quiet way, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station. There are men out there who need this reminder just as much as you did, and your presence here means more than you know. Let's begin. She gave you reasons. You weren't present enough. You didn't communicate well. Her family didn't approve. You were too distant, or too intense, or maybe just too much. And in the fog of confusion that follows a breakup, you probably took those reasons at face value. You might have replayed the conversations, tried to locate the moment you slipped, the decision that turned it all around. But what she said and what's true are rarely the same thing. Because the reason she left wasn't logic. It wasn't a list of flaws or isolated incidents. The real reason, quiet and uncomfortable as it is this. She stopped feeling desire. She stopped feeling drawn to you in that deep, magnetic way that makes someone choose to stay, even when things aren't perfect. Not because she stopped caring, not even because she stopped loving, but because that inner gravity, the thing that makes two people move toward each other instinctively, began to fade. And that's a difficult thing to sit with. It doesn't point to a clear solution. It doesn't offer you closure, but it does offer you something more important: clarity. What most men do at this stage is panic. They try to fix the surface, try to apologize more, say all the right things, remind her of what they had. They fight battles that don't matter anymore because they're not fighting the real issue. The foundation has already shifted. When attraction is gone, even the smallest disagreement feels insurmountable. But when attraction is alive, the biggest issues are forgivable. You might think you lost her because of what you did wrong. But in truth, you lost her because she no longer felt that pull. And when that pull disappears, words don't bring it back. Still, there's something powerful about understanding this. Because once you stop chasing the surface, you can begin to rebuild what matters underneath. Not to win her back, but to return to yourself. The version of you that held presence. That didn't have to convince anyone of your worth. That walked into a room and didn't need permission to belong there. Let's be honest for a second. Somewhere along the line you gave that version of yourself away. It probably didn't feel like a big deal at the time. You skipped the gym to stay on the phone with her. You let a few boundaries slide, told yourself it was compromise. You put your ambitions on pause because the relationship became your focus. You convinced yourself that being available, being devoted, being constant was love. But the more you gave up pieces of yourself to make it work, the less of you remained. And the irony is, in trying to hold on to her, you became someone she couldn't feel attracted to anymore. Love built on the sacrifice of identity can't last. It becomes quiet resentment, self-neglect dressed up as commitment, and soon enough you stop being seen, not just by her, but by yourself. That's why getting your power back isn't about pretending not to care. It's about remembering who you were before the need for her approval clouded your vision. And that starts with space. Silence isn't weakness. It's not about playing games. No contact isn't a strategy. It's a declaration. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, every time you sit with the urge to reach out and choose to return to yourself instead, you're stepping back into alignment. You're choosing self-respect over desperation. You're saying, I no longer negotiate my worth. Of course, it's not easy. Some days the silence will feel like punishment. You'll question if it's the right move. But you have to remember, when you're always the one reaching, always the one adjusting, always the one giving, you create a dynamic where she holds the power and you hold the burden. And people don't value what they can control. They don't chase what's always available. When you gave everything, she didn't have to wonder. There was no mystery, no risk of loss, no space for desire to grow. But now, that has changed. You're not chasing anymore. You're no longer reacting to her energy. You've shifted the terms without saying a word. That's power, that's presence. And when she begins to feel that, when the calls slow down, when the silence grows heavier, when you stop orbiting around her, she will notice. She may reach out. She may get upset. She may try to test your resolve. But this time, you're not trying to prove anything, because you're no longer lost in her. You've started coming home to yourself. And that, more than anything, is what she didn't expect. But understanding why she left and reclaiming your sense of self is only the beginning. Because awareness without action changes nothing. So the question becomes, now that you've stopped chasing, how do you start becoming? That's where everything begins to shift. There's something most men aren't told after a breakup. Your feelings are real, but they don't have to dictate your reality. You can wake up missing her, dream about the way things used to be, feel the weight of 1,000 memories on your chest, and still choose to act from a place of strength, not longing. That's not denial, that's discipline. You don't need to pretend you don't care. You don't need to erase what you felt. But what you do need, what will quietly change everything, is the choice to stop acting from need and start acting from self-respect. Even if your mind replays the past on a loop, even if there's a part of you that still wonders if she's thinking about you too, you are not required to move according to that pull. That's what emotional maturity looks like. It's the space between what you feel and what you do with it. So you stop reaching out, not because you're playing games, but because you're no longer outsourcing your peace to her reply. You stop explaining yourself, not because there's nothing to say, but because you know that your silence speaks more clearly than desperation ever could. You stop trying to make her remember what you once were, and instead, you become someone new. Not for her, for you. Attractive behavior isn't a trick. It's not a checklist to win someone back. It's a reflection of a man who knows who he is, who no longer needs to prove his value because he lives it. A man who no longer negotiates his self-worth in someone else's presence. You don't text first because your life is full. You don't beg because you remember the man you were before this pain, and you're on your way back to him. You don't sit around wondering how she feels because you're too busy shaping a life that makes you feel proud to wake up in it. At first it feels unfamiliar, maybe even hollow. You'll feel the tension between the part of you that wants to reach out and the part of you that knows better. But over time, something shifts. The discipline becomes instinct. The silence becomes peace. The behaviors become beliefs. And the confidence you used to fake becomes real. That's when the change becomes visible, not just to you, but to her. Because while you've been rebuilding yourself brick by brick, something else has been happening quietly in the background. She's started to notice the silence, the stillness, the absence of the version of you who used to respond instantly, who used to chase her validation like oxygen. She starts to wonder, not just about where you are, but about who you've become. And this is the beginning of the shift. The version of you that once clung to every breadcrumb she offered, the one who lived for her attention, doesn't exist anymore. And that unsettles her, not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, but because it changes the power dynamic entirely. Now, she's unsure. She sends a casual message. She likes an old photo. She brings your name up in conversation with mutual friends. She starts to orbit your world the way you used to orbit hers. Not because she's suddenly ready to be better for you, but because she can't feel her grip on you anymore. And that confuses her. For the first time, she no longer sees herself as the center of your emotional universe. You've stepped out of that orbit, and now you're moving in your own direction, quietly, steadily, freely. And you're not rushing to respond. You're not decoding every word. You're not treating her return as a prize to be won, because you're not the same man who was left behind. You've become someone who knows his own weight, someone who no longer moves out of fear of loss, but out of alignment with who he's becoming. You've become like the person in the room who speaks the least, yet commands the most attention. The kind of presence that doesn't clamor to be seen because it radiates from the inside out. And while everyone else tries to prove their worth, you no longer need to. And when she finally reaches that point, when she sends the message, when she asks the question, when she wants to talk, it hits her. You're not where she left you, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. You've moved on, not out of spite, but out of growth. She might ask, why are you acting like you don't care? But you do care. You just don't chase anymore. You don't perform. You don't beg. You simply stand, steady, whole, unbothered, because the journey was never about getting her back. It was about getting you back. And now, whether she returns or not, whether you say yes or no, it no longer defines you. You've already won. If you're still watching, still listening, then I want to say something directly to you. I've been where you are. The confusion, the silence, the weight that sits on your chest every morning. I've replayed the last words, overanalyzed the last text, searched for that one missing piece that might have saved it all. And I remember how loud the questions were when the answers never came. But over time, through quiet, often painful reflection, I learned something that no one ever told me. It's not about getting her back. It never was. What you're really looking for is yourself. The version of you who didn't shrink to be loved, who didn't explain himself to be understood, who didn't wait to be chosen because he knew how to choose himself. That's the message I've tried to share with you through every word of this journey. The reason she left wasn't about logic or timing. It was about energy, about presence, about you losing your center and her losing the pull. But instead of chasing what slipped away, you now have a rare opportunity, one most men miss. You can rebuild from the inside out. You can stop asking how to fix her feelings and start asking how to restore your foundation. You reclaim your power not through words, but through silence, not through anger, but through alignment, not through control, but through clarity. And when you do, the game changes. She might come back, or she might not. But the outcome doesn't define the victory anymore, because the real win is waking up every day no longer needing someone else to confirm your worth. It's moving through the world as a man who doesn't chase, but who attracts, who doesn't perform, but who embodies, who doesn't beg, but who commands respect without ever raising his voice. That is emotional maturity in today's world. Not numbness, not ego, but the discipline to act from self-respect, even when your heart still remembers the pain. So, if you're still caught in that loop, replaying the breakup, questioning your value, I want you to hear this clearly. You haven't lost your power, you've only misplaced it. And it's time to bring it home, because this journey was never about her. It was about remembering who the hell you are. And now that you remember, live like it. If something in this message resonated with you, even just a whisper, I invite you to stay close. This space exists for men who are ready to stop chasing, start healing, and finally stand in who they truly are. If you found any value here, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station. It helps this message reach others who might need it, just like you once did. And if you feel called to share your story, your thoughts, the comments are open. I read them. They matter. You don't have to walk through this alone. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep showing up, not for her, not for the world, but for you.